Limerick there. Well, with me now is Marta Mulyak from the Association of Ukrainians in Great Britain, which is the largest representative body for Ukrainians here in this country. Thanks very much indeed for coming in. It's good to see you. You have family still in Ukraine. The majority are in the West, but you do have one family member who's in Crimea. Have you managed to speak to him?
Yes, well, I did speak to him recently, and he and his family are very, very concerned and stressed out about everything what is happening at the moment in Crimea. And they're actually thinking of probably even leaving Crimea and going and live in some other parts of Ukraine.
I mean, how important is the Crimea region to Ukraine as a whole, for instance, economically?
I mean, we can ask the question, how important is any part of human body to human, you know? So any part of a country is equally as important as any part of human body is equally as important for one human. So, you know, there is not question whether this is very important or not very important. Of course, it's massively important, and Ukraine will not give up on any part of its country.
So this is specifically then a sort of an idea of Ukrainian sovereignty, of the entity that is the country, being torn apart.
Absolutely. It is an invasion, and I personally feel like someone walked into my house and said, well, this room of your flat does not belong anymore to you, now I'm going to live here and you'll be paying my bills, sort of thing. So every Ukrainian feel intruded by Russia, by Putin, by Russian troops in Ukraine, and all that I've got to say that Russians have to go out of Ukraine as soon as possible.
So it's an emotional tie to that
absolutely.
part of the country.
I mean, it's not only to that part of the country, it would be emotional tied to any part of the country. And I guess you know, as Ukrainian, I feel that the whole Ukraine is my country. So it's not only one city where I'm from. You know, when I talk about Ukraine to my foreign friends, I tell them about the whole Ukraine, and I tell them about the history of the whole Ukraine. I don't tell them about the history of the city where I'm from. So any region of any country is very, very important, and we are talking about the integrity and territorial integrity of Ukraine, and it can't be thrown apart.
But the Russians and the people of Crimea would say, look, there was a referendum. The majority of the population down there is ethnic Russian, and they've always seen themselves as Russian. They had a democratic vote, and that was the result.
Well, I would really, and I think as many other people would really question how democratic this vote was. I mean, we know how many guns at the moment, Russian guns at the moment, are in Crimea. We know that Russian tanks are in Crimea, and we really should be questioning how legitimate is any referendum held at the you know, at the point of a gun. You know, you just can't call this a democratic referendum. Now, the other question would be if we really had a democratic referendum, but that did not happen yet.
But would you be willing to see the West or Ukraine itself use force, use soldiers on the ground to try and repel what Russia is trying to do?
Well, I, as a citizen of Ukraine, should say that no, I wouldn't want any military force to be used, because only what is going to happen in that instance is that we're going to lose lives of Ukrainians and lives of those ethnic Russians who live in the part of Ukraine which is called Crimea. So I would never want any life to go because of this conflict. But you know, the people responsible for this mess should be held to account, and I think now is the time for international community is to step up and actually, with imposing their sanctions, to actually take some serious sanctions, you know, not a couple of sanctions here and there. They have to be, you know, in a very complex way, and Russia should understand that, you know, they are isolated from the world, and they should be isolated at the moment because they're breaking any international law.
Some street signs have already been changed from Ukrainian to Russian in Crimea.
That's right.
They're going to be moving to Moscow time, 2 hours ahead in a few weeks, and they're going to start using the ruble. Your relative who's down in Crimea, is he going to leave?
Oh, definitely. He is going to leave, and as I said before, his family is thinking about leaving Crimea as well. And I also know many other people from Crimea who have left already. I know that, for example, I've heard today that about 1,000 Crimeans, so Tatars families have left Crimea already. I also know that, for example, Ukrainian teachers are being repressed at at schools in Crimea, and they have been told that their services would no longer be needed in September. So this is a terrible situation for people in Crimea. And I think, yes, while there are some people who probably would want it to be part of Russia, but still, well, yes, you're right, a lot of people, but we should be questioning that referendum, because we also know, for example, that in Sevastopol alone, they said that some 474,000 people voted, right? But we know from last year, from how many people live in Crimea, it's only 385,000 people, and that's including all children. Now, my question is, how all of a sudden we've got over 89,000 people suddenly appearing in one city of Ukraine to vote specifically for joining Russia.
I mean, they're all
I think they just never existed in Sevastopol, and all of the numbers are completely made up. And also, what about international observers? I haven't heard many reports from international observers and polling observers saying any numbers. So there are questions.
Lots of questions. Okay, Marta Mulyak, thanks very much indeed for joining us from the Association of Ukrainians in Great Britain. Thank you.
Thank you very much.